Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, and today we are going to be talking about what are the best fishing lures to use in fall for fall fishing. Alright, let's get started. Number one on my list is a spinnerbait. Spinnerbaits are the best bait to get a fish in your lake or the body of water that you're fishing in to get moving around and active. A spinnerbait all depends on what color of skirt that you're using and the types of blades that you're using. Personally, these type of blades are my favorite. They produce a large amount of flash, and they're best to use in choppy water because that shines on the fish and it just makes them get really annoyed and want to bite it. Now, it all depends on what color of water that you're fishing in, whether it's stained or not. See, this skirt that I have right here is good for stained water because it's bright and colorful. Now, if you're fishing in really clear water, a really dark skirt, like here on this jig, is better. Okay, moving on. Number two on my list is a wacky worm. Wacky worms are great for if the fish are really slow and not moving. It's good for a slow fall. And my favorite type of worm to use is either a Yamamoto or a Yum Dinger. Yum Dingers are nice because they're really they stretch a lot and they bend really easily. And the bending part really comes in when it's slow falling, and then you jerk your rod, because when you jerk your rod, the wacky worm bends like this. And it all depends again on what color you're using, whether it's stained or not. Moving on. Next item is a jig. A jig is really good for when you have structure, like say if you have a stump in the middle of your lake and you take this jig and fall it right here, and there's a little cubby in the stump. A bass is going to come out, grab the bait, and pull it back in. And what you want to do is you want to let it fall, hit the bottom, and just jerk it up. That's all you need to do, and a big old bass should come and get it. Number 4 on my list is a tiny little jerkbait. Tiny jerkbaits are good for when the bait in your lake are on top. What you do is you throw it out, let it float, and then you just slowly jerk it down. Slowly jerk it, let it float. Slowly jerk it down, let it float. This is good. This bait is really good when your lake or body of water is really clear. Like I said, it all depends on what color. Alright, moving on. Number 5, I think, on my list is a lipless crankbait. This is good for deeper water or shallow water. It's really not so much shallow water, but it's usually universal for what you want to use. Say the shad or bait fish in your lake are on a drop-off. You take it, line your boat up right on the edge of the drop-off, you throw this out, and you let it crank down. Let it crank, and then a big old bass should come up and eat it. Like I said, all depends on the color. See, this would be good for a river or murky stained water lake, this color. Moving on. Now, this is my least favorite on the list, but it all depends on where you're fishing at. A frog is good for pads and water or weeds that are floating on top on the edge of a shore. You throw this against the seawall and you slowly move it across the weeds until it hits the edge, and then a bass should eat it. But like I said, all depends on the color, all depends on what they're biting. So it's really tricky in fall fishing because when they're biting, you get big fish, but when they're not, you just have to keep on trying different lures to see what they're liking. And you got the barometric pressure, so if like a cold front's coming in, that's going to be pretty tricky, then the fish are not going to like it. But it's all depends on where you're fishing. Say there's a weed flat. I would personally throw my spinner bait. Now, if it's a drop off, I would throw the lipless crankbait. If there's structure at the bottom, a jig. Now, weeds along a seawall, a frog. Jerk bait, if there's bait at the top, I'd go with the jerk bait. See, all of these baits have different purposes to use during fall fishing. That's going to be it for today. I'll catch you on the next run. See ya.